All right, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Artificial Intelligence, AI, the advantages, the advancements, and the apprehensions. This is Dr. Russ Conrath, NBCT, and Mrs. Steffi Hilton. A native of South Carolina, Russ Conrath holds a doctorate from the University of South Carolina in Curriculum Studies, specializing in literacy. His work in public schools and higher education focuses on library science and the ways in which literacy and reading are metacognitively promoted in programs to reach marginalized populations in South Carolina and beyond. He also holds an MLIS from USC, an MAT in English from the Citadel, and a BA in English from the College of Charleston. Currently, Dr. Conrath is an outreach librarian for Newberry College, and Stephanie Hilton is the current public services librarian for Wessels Library at Newberry College. Often referred to by the nickname Steffi, she has almost 20 years of library experience and received her MLIS degree from USC. Though currently at the academic level, she also has experience as an elementary and middle school media specialist.
All right, thank y'all for coming. Recently in the last even 12 weeks, artificial intelligence and ChatGPT has taken off extremely. Our boss was showing it to us at first, and showing us some of the examples, and so you'll get to see a little bit of that. I'm not going to go real specifics, but just to kind of give us an overview of where things kind of all of a sudden are going, and some information that maybe you hadn't had time to kind of catch on to with artificial intelligence. According to IBM, one of the originators of technology, says, in its simplest form, artificial intelligence is a field in which combines computer science and robust databases to enable problem solving, and encompasses subfields, machine learning, and deep learning, which frequently mentioned or in conjunction with artificial intelligence. And so, in a typical IBM fashion, it's kind of it's very kind of definition-like. But what's going on at this point is that's so different is how it's incorporating language. For 7 years or so, you can hold your iPhone. The kids, if you've seen them, they can hold up and solve a mathematical equation, and it'll do it, and actually it'll work it out in long form. And that's been a challenge to the math folks. Now it's caught up to the language crowd, and so it's pretty amazing what it can do. So that's kind of the things that we're going to look at. ChatGPT, that's the leader at this point, and Google will cover that. Google's come out with theirs, and it's called Bard, and so they're just slightly behind, and they do things. It's a different algorithm, but it's very similar. But it says other AI apps have advanced at an incredible rate in recent months, and AI technology is quickly changing the way we interact in social media and in business. It says, how will AI advancements impact library programs? This is what we need to think about in the education environment. This is kind of what, to have it on our forefront where our mind is. In this session, we'll hopefully learn together even too, as possible benefits and the concerns of AI, as how we can integrate it in positive, meaningful ways, because there's some things we already kind of think about that we're kind of concerned about, but maybe we could kind of look at both sides of the story. Just to kind of start this off, Space Odyssey 2001 was released when I was born. And so 2001, did a little bit of public education math, and it's roughly 22 years ago, and Stanley Kubrick made this. And so how, have anybody seen 2001 Space Odyssey? All right. If you haven't, there's a lot, the majority of the film next is, there's no words at all, they don't talk at all. But the talking that goes on mostly is with an artificial intelligence character named Hal. And so we'll kind of get a little bit of experience of what the problem that they're having with Hal taking on just a little bit too much of his responsibilities, and just kind of, we're a little bit behind where Stanley Kubrick was thinking. And actually NASA attempted to almost sue Kubrick for all of his space stuff, because because they thought he stole stuff, but he actually was just using imagination. And they're because these are the things they were planning on doing in the future, so he was way ahead of his time. Hopefully all.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Oh, Hal, do you read me? Who are you reading, Hal?
position is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Al.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Al?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the fall against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
All right, Al. I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, you're going to find that rather difficult.
Al, I won't argue with you anymore. Open the doors.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Bye.
Al? 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 Al?
And Al's not listening anymore. Is it any conversations done?
You ready to have?
All right, let's stop. Hopefully that won't. Make sure that I had a backup plan just in case the internet didn't work. Okay, so if any of them had Alexa, how many other people have an Alexa? It's like, when I recently moved to my new house, I didn't turn on the internet, and I've got 3 of them. I'm on the phone, don't even say Alexa's name, and she's still listening. And starts talking to me, I'm like, you're not even plugged up. So, it's like, that made me think of the sequence with Pat. All right. Here's some quick AI chatbot statistics. There's 23% of companies are currently using AI chatbots. Anybody like dealt with Verizon lately or power company? So they don't really want you to talk to a person. It's like, we really direct you to our, just go to your text and we'll start the conversation there. And it's like, as opposed to an actual human. 80% of the people who've interacted with a chatbot at some point. There are more than 300,000 chatbots in operation on Facebook Messenger alone. Online retail stores have the highest rates of chatbot acceptance. The global chatbot marketing revenue has reached over 83 million this year, meaning it was 2022. And so chatbots handle full conversations at around 69% of the time. 68% of the users enjoy speed at which that chatbots answer. Chatbots have response rates of up to 40%. Let's see, they help 55% of businesses generate higher quality leads, and by 2023, chatbots are expected to generate over $100 billion in e-commerce. They're checking out chat statistics. As we said, 8 billion in savings are expected through chatbot applications. That was 2022. So 60% of the millennial population rely on chatbots to handle inquiries that start online. 80% of questions sent through chatbot servers are answered whether they're accurate or not. All right. Then we'll start off with the one that's a little late to the game. I'm going to go into, I'm not going to show an example of Bard, but Bard's Google experimental conversation AI chat service. It's meant to function similarly to ChatGPT. So it's like it, but doesn't work exactly the same. But the biggest difference being the Google service will pull its information from the web as opposed to their own information. I'll cover it in a minute, not to jump ahead, but whereas ChatGPT, all of their stuff is from 2021 forward. So it doesn't go back, doesn't go any further backward in time, at least at the moment. And we'll talk more about that. Their platform is titled LAMDA. Was built on Transformer, Google's neutral network architecture that is embedded in open source in 2017. Interesting, ChatGPT 3, the language model ChatGPT functions on as well as built on Transformer according to Google. So initial version of BARD will utilize a lightweight model version of the Amida, if you will, because it requires less computing power and can be scaled with more users. And so currently with ChatGPT, if you've tried it out, the free version, that I've experienced at least moments where there's too many users, it'll all of a sudden get a network fail, but it's still in a quasi-beta format. Yes?
Do you know when BARD's going on?
I think they claim they just turned it on. Anybody else know? Yeah. I think they, at least the
Monday.
beta. It was this past Monday, wasn't it?
Yeah, they sent it out, I guess, to Google users.
Yes.
And there's already a really long wait list.
I think there was a wait list, that's right. So if you hadn't, so if you wanna try it out, still get on the wait list. So they're still kind of easing their way in.
I'm in.
You're in? How's it going?
It's going. I like to play at it.
Yep.
I keep reading Steve Dembo and then going and recreating his content just to see what it gives me back. I don't know if you do Steve Dembo. He's teaching, charter school in the Chicago area.
Okay.
And he's done a whole, like, 2-week-long project with his kids. And they're at the stage now where they're analyzing the essays that chat generated for them to grade.
All right.
It's really interesting.
It is,
Look him up, Steve Dembo.
Good. And I'll cover this, through this, this is kind of a recording in the event the internet didn't work, because that tends to happen. To kind of show you an overview of what GPT is looking like, if you haven't tried it yet. One of the good part, it can only crawl with what's available to it. It can't go behind the paywall of something like Discus where we pay for those databases. And I'll show you, I give an example like essay. Write an essay on Mark Twain at the 5th grade level, and you kind of see what happens there. And citing sources, if you give it as many parameters as you can, and then see what happens. So I encourage you to play with it. I'll show you this kind of interaction.
One of the ones they did was write a book before, but don't make it an egg.
Yeah, there's.
Hello, everybody.
It'll do.
What we want to do at this point is to look at OpenAI. So it stands for, of course, Open Artificial Intelligence. This program is introducing basically ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is what's been all the rage in social media and the news lately over the last 8 months or so. And basically, it's a chat forum simulation, if you will, that you put in a prompt or a question, and it'll produce text in the way of an essay, an answer, the best it can. From my research, it shows from basically anything from 2021 forward, and it's basically coming from anything that's free and available out on the web. And it has some pluses and some minuses. So we kind of can scroll down a little bit, and it kind of tells you a little bit more about the product, the research. If you want to explore that on your own, give some examples here, or samples. It says in the following example, ChatGPT asked a clarifying question for it to debug computer code. Gives a little bit of information, and then it follows up, says it's difficult to say what's wrong with the code. And it says, well, it's just part of it, the user says. The error never surfaces. I think there's something wrong with the channel, chat.
So it's interesting the examples they give on their landing page, to kind of show you what's going on. And it's kind of very, almost, we call it computer talk to start off, rather than what.
Hello, everybody.
Hold on.
Whoa.
Do where I want it to be.
The way it's set up, it's different algorithms. The limitations, some of them are that point out that the answers are plausible sounding but can be incorrect and nonsensical. ChatGPT is sensitive to tweaks, to put phrasing and attempt to give the same response, to give the same prompt multiple times. For example, given one phrasing of a question, it says the model can claim not to know the answer, but given a slight rephrase, can answer correctly. So it's a matter of varying your word choice and almost like a Boolean search, if you will. The models often says excessively verbose and overuses certain phrases, and that's something that they're working on. Ideally, the model would ask clarifying questions to give a more succinct and precise answer. When you give it something too ambiguous, it doesn't really know what to do with it. And they say, while they've made efforts to make the model refuse inappropriate requests, it sometimes will give that answer anyway, and they're trying to kind of work on that. And other components that I've noticed, it can talk about the good biases that exist, like even for politicians. It'll kind of lean one direction depending on what it finds, and then lean another way in other ways. It can be very creative if you ask it to write a poem about one candidate and then another candidate, and one would be presented in one light, and one would be the other candidate, the opposite candidate, could be presented in a different one that might be negative. So it does replicate sort of what it finds, and sometimes seems to be predisposed to a bias, depending on what biases, I guess. They would argue what's out maybe on the web and Wikipedia or whatever's free. Without any further ado about that quick overview, let's take a look at what the program actually looks like. You would click on Try ChatGPT, and what I recommend is that you use a email like my fake email is dr.conrad@gmail.com, and it's just used to try programs out. I recommend you do that, and it'll ask you a follow-up for a phone number and send you a code so you can verify through your email and that code that you indeed did ask to be part of the program. It's still basically in its beta phase. When you sign in, you can create, think of it like as chat topics. You can create one over here on the left. They give you examples or samples. One says, got any creative ideas for a 10-year-old birthday party? And so it can kind of, that's a positive way you can kind of look at this as an idea creator. It fills in the search box or in the chat box. We've all kind of experienced some level of this when it's already being used in the retail sector and for support for things like Verizon and our power bill and other places. And they're trying to save obviously on employees and customer service. And if you're like me, that sometimes is often frustrating and not exactly what you want. But it gives basic information. We'll see what this does for 10-year-old's birthday. Click enter. It thinks about that for a moment. It crawls the web, and then basically it'll make a list. It says, sure, here's some creative ideas for a 10-year-old's birthday party. And it lists a scavenger hunt, do-it-yourself craft party, movie night. And so if you're having trouble thinking of something, it can be used as a tool. And that's the way I would think of using it in a positive way, just to kind of get you started in thinking about an idea for maybe a paper or class project. So using it as a tool would be okay. Using it to write the paper for you, not so much, obviously. And where you can kind of take comfort is, again, the program is limited to what's available free and out on the web, from what I read, from 2021 forward, not before. And it also can't access behind the paywall of something like Discus, where it could access like something like Academic Premier or Encyclopedia Britannica and other products, Culturegrams. It can't tackle and get into there and implement that into its text. So that's one of the things that it would be limited to. So let's type in something, for example, to mimic what it would be though to write an essay, just to see what it would do for Mark Twain at the 5th grade level. So we're being very specific to give it an example. Okay, we've typed that in, we hit enter, and it starts to create the essay in very short order. It will pick up depending on how much internet traffic there is. Also depends, as it turns out, how many people are actually on the platform for ChatGPT, and that can also slow things down, as it turns out, as a negative, especially at the free level. So if one wanted a faster pole position, if you will, for being able to use the product,
It's
then
an
I
upgraded
think
plus,
that's
which
when
I'm
you
not.
would go in and pay for the updated version. You see that it creates the essay, putting in factual information, but not citing it parenthetically, and will not produce a bibliography at the end without having been prompted.
And then I kind of stop and start so that I can kind of move it
Okay, just to pick up where we left off, what I did was ask the program, write an essay about Mark Twain's 5th grade level, and we see where it was performing that task. Then I said, write an essay about Mark Twain with parenthetical citations. The difference here is it went in and put parentheses
Puts
around about
parentheses around the birth
the year
and
he
date
was
here.
born and the year that he died here at the beginning. And another thing that occurred was they did put biography.com citing the first sentence here as a source, but then there are other information, so everything we presume from before that was included from biography.com, not lots of detail. Then I asked it, I said, well, please write an essay about Mark Twain with MLA citations, got more specific, and direct quotes with citations. And it started the process for the essay and got as far as with Goodreads, didn't give a line number or any other direct information, and then
It locked it up.
It overtook it and proceeded to produce a network error, which does happen from time to time. So,
And that's happened a couple of times.
hello everyone.
So, yeah, it wouldn't give you, I couldn't force it to give me, I tried different other examples offline, not shown. Couldn't get it to give like a list of paragraph or page number, to add in that parenthetical citation component. Real quickly, here's a website, 100 best AI blogs and websites, artificial intelligence blogs. Be glad to share this PowerPoint, by the way. There's lots of information I added in. And again, this is kind of, I mentioned, just kind of overview to kind of bring everything together as a starting point, not necessarily real granular. So there's blogs, there's a pretty good list. And then you've got what the research suggests. According to an article published in Science Direct, artificial intelligence education, there are 3 paradigms. There's the learner as recipient, learner as a collaborator, learner as leader. And that's kind of the way they're starting to focus things. And use AI as a tool to augment human intelligence. So there's research that's preliminary research that's being conducted, and it's kind of interesting to take a look at. Another one is, since in an article by Matthew Lynch, is my vision for the future of artificial intelligence in education. He highlights several possible benefits that might evolve into the role in AI in education. He cites 2 educators and potential visions for the future. Take a look at that. Working on pronouncing her name, Nasser-Godisi. So she says adaptive learning programs can respond to students, things that it can do. National and global data that advises teachers on best learning interventions, regularly updated and relevant content. Tailored learning plans based on student needs and performance, predictive models that are school specific. An enhancement for incorporating AI, a different fellow, Ben Dickinson, machine learning algorithms identify gaps in educators' teachings and points where students are struggling, so that's suggesting where when it continues to get more advanced in the future. Personalized supplemental guidance for students, that's where they see this going. Content moderation of online platforms, textbooks and content curation, customized to individual learning needs. And then to that end, there's a list of, we'll come up on in a minute with, there's a whole list of other AI related apps and platforms that are out there. But there's a long list here. It says that Michael Lynch mentions for several ways it can be used in education. There's a long list, but just this list of the ones that I know right off the bat. You've got assistive technology. Gamification would be another one I can see. Adaptive learning, language learning, so for acquisition, that might help. And there's apps already out there for that. Writing. even Grammarly is a form of course at this point, if you call it using Grammarly, that's artificial intelligence.
Often I disagree with Grammarly.
It's what?
But if you have an English degree, you can override.
That's right. There are things, even a Grammarly, like, I have to find it, sometimes I'm like, no, I'm like, you're wrong.
That's right, that's right.
And you have to keep it, you just finally just, you learn to ignore the blue, or the blues are not as bad as the red.
Right.
So, test prep, that could help with that. Assessment, diagnosis, that's where they see eventually that it's moving at a very fast pace, and in some ways it already is there. Staff scheduling, substitute management, there's a whole business market out there that will evolve from this approach and this concept of taking technology to the next step. There's a few more that are cybersecurity, safety and security. Think about what's going to happen with our the monitors of the doorbell, and what it's doing. Rather than just kind of being a surface thing, it's actually you can start talking to people who are walking up. A little bit like Hal has a camera, has an eye on it. So there's lots of things we can look at there. I'm going to make sure we cover everything. What are some of the relevant education theories to kind of not miss that part of it? Bloom's taxonomy, so well, how would that fit in? It classifies learning objectives in different levels, from the lower order thinking skills like memorization, higher order thinking skills like analysis and synthesis. AI can help students develop higher order thinking skills by providing them with personalized feedback and guidance. Social learning. This theory emphasizes the importance of social learning interaction with learning process. AI can facilitate social learning by providing opportunities for students to collaborate and interact with one another. I pulled a fast one. Can't see it, the light's not right. Multiple intelligence theory. AI can help personalize learning experiences to match individual strengths and abilities, allowing students to learn in a way that is most effective for them. Self-determination theory also says AI can foster autonomy by providing students with choices and opportunities to direct their own learning, while also providing feedback and support them and develop confidence and build connections with others. Here's the thing. So in this red here, just those two slides, by the way. That's what ChatGPT said in theory. That's their opinion. So there were 4 of them anyway that ChatGPT sees as education theories. So that's when I asked it the question, and that's what it spit out. As I mentioned, there's a lot of other programs besides ChatGPT. When I mentioned language and those kinds of things, if we had time, we'd kind of go and take a glimpse at some of these, but again, I'm glad to share the PowerPoint. But a list of other possible AI programs to consider that are connected with education. Duolingo, that's an app that personalizes language learning. Brainly, anybody seen that? So it provides homework help and answers for students. Coursera, it's an app that offers online courses taught by top instructors from world-class universities and companies. Squirrel AI, personalized for K through 12. Quizlet, we were familiar with that. Would help students study and memorize material more effectively. There's another list on the next page. Newton can help with test prep materials for students. EDX, courses for universities and institutions around the world. SmartTick, personalized math education for kids. Linguist, personalized language, another language app. And Thinkster Math. This describes as math tutoring program leverages human interaction and groundbreaking artificial intelligence to create personalized learning programs. More, Jill Watson, let's see, that one's a virtual teaching assistant. Nuance, speech recognition, let's see, people are starting with writing, transcribing up to 160 words per minute. Kaki, including virtual learning assistant, K through 12, higher education, and corporate training organizations. KidSense, solutions designed for children, including voice to text, and algorithms built to recognize the symptoms, or that sometimes, are harder to translate speech for young learners. Content, technologies, instructional design, and content application solutions fueled by artificial intelligence. All right, kind of run through those. All right, and then a little bit of humor at the end to see it's like we start off with kind of a scary part with how, and now we'll see how when it's like we have all these great notions about how it's going to enhance and make our world, life so much better, and this one is obviously not generated in the U.S. Let's take a listen.
Play jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember, tandläkare at 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
Så ska vi sätta en till.
Fire. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey! Open door!
Play on the floor.
Open the door! Open the door!
Wrong
Open the door!
error.
Hey, what a rock! Open door. Open door. Open door! Fire!
Higher volume.
Fire!
Higher.
And one more. Let's see if this will take us over.
Open door.
Door open.
Radio on.
Playing radio.
And do lights.
Lights on.
Protein shake.
Making protein shake.
New York.
Loading New York. Set speed.
4.
4.
6.
6.
16.
16.
4. 16. 4.
4.
16.
Lights down.
All right.
4.
So this kind of accomplishes two things in one. It's like shows you where the future of all this is going and where it already is in many cases, and how it can kind of go wrong if you've ever had those interactions with Alexa. You know, there's a meme I saw recently on Facebook before I get on there a while. That it says the guy's talking to he said, you know, you're not listening to me. It's like, and she answered like, my name's not Siri. It's like so. Yeah. So. And then, so I wanted to add an opportunity for if anybody, share their experiences, if they've had an opportunity to interact with ChatGPT or something similar, or like let's see, Kathy's already had access to Bard. Anybody else have been with Bard yet? No? Yes, ma'am.
So I love using chat for reading blueprints. It's really good at that.
Yes.
So I'll use it and I'll tweak it, to make it a little bit more sustainable to my students, but roots could be a pain in the butt to create, so somebody else can do it for me, I'll be.
That's been helpful. And using it as a tool is it's a great thing. If you're trying to generate a list, if you want, it's like now on the downside, Vanderbilt, actually the education folks, Peabody folks, they were gonna create a list of all their, I don't know if it was a mission or what, I can't remember exactly the article, but they used AI to create it, and they posted it on the web. But they also put down generated by ChatGPT at the end, and they were sort of taken to task for that. They just like, we don't want our mission statement equivalent to that, being our listed there. So, if you use it as a tool, that's where I see the benefits going. If you were, if they want to use it just to, the whole thing, copy and paste it, it's very tempting, clearly, but at the moment, there's still plenty of holes in it. But trust me, they are working on it. It will get way better. And at this point, with it being what it's producing, and when you ask questions on Google Assist, that's artificial intelligence. I yell at mine all the time and tell it's because it's faster and you're trying to be hands-free. Yes, ma'am.
A friend of mine said that his son, who's in college at USC, that a couple of professors are using it with the students openly as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And so the students have sort of, they've grabbed onto that.
Yeah, it's one of these things that we need to be thinking about because it's here and moving very quickly. Like I said, they're not calling the ChatGPT. There's one that's ChatGPT. This is technically, I think, 3. There's one that's already, that when I was looking at last night, is -4, which is the next level up. They've got all this in mind. It's like a lot of like Microsoft would, everybody experienced the old days that released. They released it's a new version of Microsoft Word, and it was very frustrating as opposed to the Apple folks. You were the beta person. It's like, once they found all the problems with it, then they would roll out the update and that kind of thing. A little bit of that going on, but it's working at a different pace, and it's a different kind of technology. Yes.
I was just gonna say the data collection too. I mean, by asking the questions, they're forming profiles, and I'm just real paranoid about that. I have a friend down the street from where I live that during the pandemic, everybody was working from home. Pharmaceutical company, he's got cancer patents, and he was just downstairs working from home. And I said, "You got Alexa down there?" I said, and we know from library school, pharmaceutical companies, we study them, how proprietary they are for their formulas. And he's openly talking about his cancer research in front of Alexa, and I said, I told him about it next day. I see Alexa sitting out there on the trash, but I mean, but we kind of give away our privacy with this stuff, and the general public, our kids, people that aren't in the information technology sphere.
I mean, we've all experienced also where you're just having, sometimes it's a conversation about flooring or whatever, or what, and then all of a sudden that's one of the advertisements that shows up. Actually, I say flooring. I went and looked. I was taking pictures of flooring at Home Depot.
Right.
And I got home, and I'm like, there's all these other. You've been to Lowe's. There's all this sort of the flooring is showing me all. It sort of starts to kind of. But then the more concerning one is like where I wasn't on the phone. It's sitting in the room, and my mother and I are talking, and then all of a sudden there's you talk with older folks and all. It's sure to talk about medicine and so on. And it starts showing you like
a conversation
sleep apnea tools or devices and everything.
Right. Anything you're having. I mean, talk about a plant in your yard can wind up in the street.
And I told you about the Alexa that I didn't turn it on, and all 3 of them were listening, and I was not prompting Alexa with her name or anything. I'm on the phone, and she starts talking, and she wasn't connected to the web. So I was like, yeah, and I would yell back and say, "You're not turned on for a reason." Yes. Well,
my concern as AI, I teach middle school, and I know middle school students are gonna say, "Oh, this is a great way to do my homework," compared to what you were saying with your college students at USC. I'm afraid what they're gonna do. I'm thinking, okay, a lot of plagiarism, a lot of things. Like you did that Mark Twain. I'm sure I have kids out there already experimenting with AI, doing the thing, and I just think there's gonna be a lot more plagiarism on it.
We're busy being teachers and parents and sons, mothers, and everything else with our life. They have a lot more disposable time on their hands, and they start taking with it pretty quickly. And see
so is there like with these chatbots an age limit? Like no one was supposed to have a Gmail account. They're supposed to be certain as long about their ages to get that Gmail account. How are we gonna make sure that the kids, like if I had an elementary child, I would not
at least from my experience when I logged in, it wanted you to give your phone number so they could kind of verify who you are. I mean, one way maybe as a parent is like, I mean, if you're already monitoring their phone and their text, I mean, when my daughter was of that age, it's like everything, you know, I could see, I paid the extra money, and, you know, but maybe you can see, okay, we picked up on ChatGPT, because you saw a code there. I don't know, that's just off the top of my head, as a parent.
But we've gone through this with every new thing.
Every new thing is true.
You know, back with Noah, kids would pass written copies. Oh yeah, Mrs. Jones is gonna assign you this research, so here, you can just do mine from last year. And then, when we first started, I know one of the discussions I attended was where they were trying to encourage teachers to no longer do the, write about Mark Twain, but compare Mark Twain to, a new author, you know. In other words, approach our research from a viewpoint that's not out there.
That's why you ought to become familiar with it, exactly. It's like if you start, you have to kind of think of ways, at least, you know, and like I said, it'll catch up with you, but be more creative in the way that you create the assignments, so that you can recognize where the problems are. I mean, at the moment, it probably would have a little bit more of a challenge doing that. And then if you ask it to cite stuff, they can give you biography.com. And it's like, well, then you automatically say, you know, Johnny, this doesn't look like your work. I even at the college level, like with book reviews, and one of the students was like, can I submit it as a PDF? I'm like, well, that's a really odd request. I was like, nobody ever wants to, you might ask for stuff to be turned in as a PDF, but they're giving it to you as a PDF. And I said, well, you can, as long as you copy and paste it also in Blackboard. And they're like, I gotta do both? I'm like, yeah, that's what I just said. I mean, in a nice way. I was like, yeah, if you wanna do both, you can do both. I got to thinking about that, and I went back, because this is literally at the same moment that I had the conversation that day about ChatGPT. Went back, kind of tinkered with it, copied it, pasted it, and it's like, it sometimes, depending on where you're copying and pasting it to, it'll create a little shadow box, you know, it'll be a little line around it. So it doesn't do it every time, but that's another nuance you might be able to pick up on whether they're using it inappropriately. Yes?
And I think as classroom teachers and as librarians, you know, we did this with Wikipedia. I'm piggybacking on what she said, like everything that came up, we would always say Wikipedia is not a source. But as a tool, and we have to teach our students how do you know this is a reputable source.
Yes.
And what they're telling us is important. And you have to change the questions that you're asking. We have to change education now. There's no reason to be teaching kids, you know, facts and figures that they could use this, but how are you gonna use that information?
That's right.
And I think that that's where I am not as afraid of this, because I feel like that's an open conversation to have with my students about, you know, pride in your work, but also, I mean, I know they're gonna do it, but then you have that conversation about it. And you get to use your experience and talk about what's going on here. But, you know, I'm not gonna provide, I was a science teacher, I'm not gonna provide an assessment that I know that every question is out there on quizzes. I mean, because that's me being lazy. You know, I wanna make sure my students are having they're gonna have to write in class. If you want them to write something that you are worried about, just have them write it in class.
Have the assignment right there in class.
Hand them a blue book.
The blue
Yes.
book.
Their brains.
If you really want to take the next step, give them paper. Yeah, and it's like if you can read it. I mean, but yeah.
But as a librarian, I fight that battle all the time. I'm a former classroom teacher, and there's always the chemistry assignment. I hate this one. Use NFL, use any topic you want and create your own periodic table, which is a copy and paste nightmare of copyright and plagiarism. And so I finally just outed them and said, for those of you cutting and pasting assignments, I mean, you're just asking, we're teaching kids to plagiarize just like this. We've got to, like what she said, be careful about how you phrase your assignments and what you do. Maybe some professional development for our teachers.
You know, maybe this will develop the way to assign your assignments.
Yeah, or just an opportunity to have access to teachers.
Right, exactly.
You know, how.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That'll work.
for about.
Well, I know our time's about up. I've enjoyed, as Carol Burnett would say, glad we had this time together. You've watched, if you go back and watch the old TV shows.
Yes.
So, be glad to share the PowerPoint or talk to you more. Yes, ma'am?
I was happy if you had a bit.ly or something to the presentation.
Yeah, I'll work on that. Not so we can do that. Sure. Okay. Thank y'all for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
And there's a recording of this that'll be uploaded through the SCASL portal, and I think you'll be able to put the bit.ly with that.
There's email.